"She's got a gun. Someone call 911." That scream ripped through the quiet street like a grenade, and in seconds 3 police cruisers came barreling in, lights flashing, weapons drawn. My wife, Amanda, had only walked out to grab the mail, but in that moment, our HOA president, Diane Parker, thought she had caught us red-handed. 42 seconds later, instead of seeing my wife in handcuffs, the whole neighborhood and over 100,000 people watching online saw armed officers lower their weapons and salute her FBI badge. And that was the exact second Diane's empire began to crumble. We had moved into Maple Grove Estates looking for peace, not war. Amanda had been through enough. Her sister Lisa had died 3 years earlier under suspicious circumstances, and Amanda needed quiet. As an FBI agent who dealt with fraud and financial crimes all day, home was supposed to be a sanctuary. I remember unloading the last box, the moving truck rolling away, when I stumbled on a yellow folder shoved behind a shelf in the garage. My gut turned cold. It was a case closure report, Lisa's case, signed by Detective Jackson Miller. Suicide. But the notes didn't line up, scribbled times, odd phone numbers, details that made my skin crawl. I was still staring when I heard the sharp click of heels on our driveway. There she was, Diane Parker, platinum blonde bob cut cream, blazer eyes like cold knives. She smiled with the fake warmth of a realtor's brochure, but every word cut sharp. She introduced herself as president of the HOA, shook my hand like she was swearing me into court, and immediately noticed the document in mine. I swear I saw her pupils tighten before she casually pulled out her phone, pretending to check the time but snapping a photo of the case number. In that instant, I knew she wasn't just some nosy neighbor. She was something else, a predator sizing up new prey. Amanda came outside just then, dressed like any suburban wife in jeans and a jacket. Diane's gaze lingered like a scalpel. She asked question after question, all smiles, but it felt like an interrogation. "What do you do for work, Amanda?" "Consulting," Amanda answered, smooth as glass, hiding the truth of who she really was. Diane kept pressing, her voice syrupy but her eyes full of suspicion, and then she dropped Lisa's name. She knew. She knew my wife's sister had lived here. She knew what had happened. And I realized right then moving here wasn't a fresh start. We'd walked straight into a battlefield. Amanda told me that night Diane wasn't greeting us, she was cataloging us, taking inventory. We were targets, and my wife decided to push back. Over coffee the next morning, she laid her FBI badge on the table like a royal flush. "She's probing for weaknesses," Amanda said. Time for her to know she picked the wrong target. I should have felt relief, but instead my stomach twisted. Diane didn't back off. She went on the offensive. Within days, neighbors were whispering, notices piled up in our mailbox, and suddenly we were accused of every violation under the sun. A $50,000 emergency fence bill, fraud alerts on our credit, a surprise city inspection, letters from our insurance company. All of it perfectly legal on the surface and perfectly designed to bury us alive. I watched Amanda's confidence start to crack. Neighbors who had smiled at us just days before crossed the street to avoid us. Diane was working them one by one, planting seeds of fear, the FBI agent who might be watching them, who might intimidate their kids, who might bring trouble to their homes. She twisted Amanda's badge into a weapon against us. Then came the HOA meeting. Packed house. 47 residents crammed inside, and Diane stood at the front like a prosecutor ready to deliver a death sentence. Photos, edited audio testimonies from neighbors, all fabricated. She accused Amanda of abusing her authority, intimidating families, conducting unauthorized surveillance. My wife sat in silence, fists clenched, forced to swallow every lie because speaking out would compromise her real investigation. When the vote came, 31 for our removal, 12 against, 4 abstentions. It felt like the walls were closing in. That night, I saw Amanda in a way I never had. For the first time, she looked defeated. Her badge, her entire career, was suspended. She handed in her service weapon, stripped of the authority that defined her. For the first time in 15 years, she whispered, "I'm defenseless." We fought. She had plans, dangerous plans to break into Miller's office to steal files. It's the only way, she said, eyes blazing with desperation. And in that moment, I wasn't sure if I was looking at my wife or a stranger consumed by vengeance. I almost gave up too. Sitting in the kitchen surrounded by letters, bills, threats, I wondered if Diane was right. Maybe we should just sell and leave. Maybe Amanda's fight was hopeless. But then came Margaret Clark, a retired attorney sharp-seasoned who had once been Diane's ally. Margaret showed up quietly one night with a laptop, eyes full of shame. "I've been analyzing the documents Diane gave us," she said. "They're fabricated, every single one. Edited photos, altered metadata, spliced recordings. It's all fake." And then she dropped the bomb. Lisa hadn't been some naive social worker poking around where she didn't belong. She had been investigating Diane. She had built a case, and she had died for it. Amanda read her sister's notes, meticulous timelines, recordings of Diane threatening residents, proof of embezzlement. 23 families had been forced out of their homes, millions stolen. Diane wasn't just a power-hungry HOA president. She was running a criminal enterprise, and Miller the detective who closed Lisa's case. He was in on it. My wife's grief ignited into something else resolve. Diane made her final arrogant move with a smartphone in hand. She live-streamed Amanda, grabbing mail, her duty belt peeking under her jacket. "I'm going live, everyone. The rogue FBI agent is armed again." Over 100,000 people tuned in, ready to see Amanda humiliated, arrested. Diane called 911, her voice dripping with panic. Armed individual harassing families with children. The police arrived, fast weapons raised. My heart stopped. And then the twist Diane never saw coming. The lead officer, Rick Brennan, recognized Amanda instantly. They had worked together. He followed protocol, demanded hands, visible ID out. At 15 seconds, Amanda announced she was reaching for her credentials. At 28, her badge was verified. At 35, Brennan called it "Stand down all units," FBI Financial Crimes Division. And at 42 seconds, every camera caught it. The officers lowering their weapons, Brennan saluting her badge. That salute went viral in minutes. Diane had just broadcast herself committing a federal crime, filing a false police report against an agent to over 100,000 witnesses. Her audience turned on her instantly. Wait, she's FBI. This woman's been harassing a federal agent this whole time. Diane tried to end the stream, but it was too late. The internet doesn't forget. That night, Miller came swaggering to our door with 2 officers, convinced he'd bury Amanda once and for all under administrative violations. Amanda didn't even flinch. She handed him a federal folder, evidence of bribes, falsified reports, phone logs linking him to Diane. And then she delivered the death blow tomorrow morning at 0800. Federal agents execute sealed warrant CR202445 on your office, residence, and devices. His face drained of color. And when she handed him his own arrest warrant already signed by a federal judge, he staggered like he'd been shot. "You've been working with federal investigators this whole time?" he asked, voice trembling. Amanda's eyes were steel. "I've been the federal investigation this whole time." The next morning, federal agents stormed their homes, seized their accounts, and dismantled a 20-year criminal empire in hours. Diane Parker, the self-crowned queen of our neighborhood, dragged out in handcuffs. Detective Miller, the man who had silenced Lisa's case, cuffed and shoved into the back of a federal SUV. Their downfall wasn't quiet. The whole community watched. Neighbors who once glared at us saw the truth play out in broad daylight. That's where the story ends, not with cake or balloons, but with handcuffs, warrants, and 2 predators finally exposed. And if there's one thing I've learned from living through this hell, it's this: sometimes the loudest bully in the neighborhood is just one good piece of truth away from collapse.